Juice Talk with Schylar Meadows on the Juice FM 107.3. Real talk, real issues, real people. This is Juice Talk with Schylar Meadows on the Juice FM 107.3.
Greetings and welcome to another edition of Juice Talk. My name is Schylar Meadows, the facilitator of all that is talk here on the Juice FM 107.3 WJUC Toledo. Today we have a full show. Remember, we have the extended format now, 10:30 a.m. to noon, 90 minutes to talk about the issues and concerns that matter. And this morning we're going to talk about a wide range of issues. First, we're going to be talking about what's going on in education. And I'm glad that the Montgomerys will be here from Culture Love Family. Remember, that's the online website dedicated to all things about culture, love, and family from the perspective of the writer. And I have been privileged to be a contributor to that blog site sometimes, to that forum, online forum. So they're going to talk today about issues and concerns going on with education. In addition to that, we're going to start talking a little bit more about the Affordable Care Act. As you know, this past week, President Obama held a very important news conference in which he announced a change to what's going on with the Affordable Care Act, and then Congress subsequently did something because, of course, President Obama can't do something without Congress trying to counteract it. The Affordable Care Act is the law. All right, here we go. Greetings and welcome to Juice Talk. Please turn your radio down. Greetings, welcome to Juice Talk. I hear feedback.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, there we go. Well, good morning, Richard Montgomery. How are you?
Good morning, Schylar Meadows. I'm doing great. How are you today?
I'm well. I was just saying that it is Culture Love Family Sunday on Juice Talk, so we will have the Montgomerys on talking about the issues and concerns that matter with education. So welcome back after a summer hiatus. You've been traveling all over the world.
Yeah, it's been definitely a busy summer, and I was hoping to come back and have a little time to relax. But if you look at October, there was no way Culture Love Family could relax.
I know, so many things going on. You're bringing up a very important topic this time, though, talking about freedom of speech, and do classroom educators get to observe freedom of speech in the same way that you or I would outside of the classroom? So go for it.
Okay, well, one of the things that I took away from October is that there's a lot of people who don't somehow get that what you say has implications outside of your circle of people, but people culturally. Case in point, Akron Public Schools had a teacher, Dr. David Bondike, who, in response to an incident that happened in his neighborhood, went on Facebook and wrote a statement, and matter of fact, I'll paraphrase it. It says, "I don't mind if you come to my neighborhood from the ghetto to trick or treat, but when you whip out your expletive in front of my house, that's a problem for me. And you can take your N-word back from where you're from." And while he's welcome to his freedom of speech, we also have to recognize the context. So let's just say, assume he was angry.
Assume he was angry?
Well, I try to give people the benefit of the doubt. Let's just assume he was angry and said something out of character. But when you look at his apology was like, well, telling me I can't say it is a form of institutional racism in and of itself. Which simply says that it wasn't just some isolated word that he used that, was out of character. This guy kind of thinks that, I should have the same right to say that in and of itself. So, just as you and some of our readers know, I just reviewed a book by Dr. Wayne Branch called High School Is Not Enough. When you are a teacher who is in a setting that, is primarily black, primarily underperforming black students, you have a responsibility to be an advocate and help guide them to their next step, which is one of the arguments that Dr. Branch makes. But this gentleman is so disconnected from being tolerant of the kind of student that he sees every day that he feels comfortable in saying that kind of language even on his Facebook. There's things you think and there's things you say. there should be some filter in what you might actually eventually say.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I saw the actual remarks posted because actually, as you know, Tisha Lee is from Akron originally.
Right.
And someone from Akron posted on her page, is that how it goes down in Akron? And I was like, this is real? Like, this is a real story. I did not see the apology, however. My thing is, why did the classroom instructor only get suspended pending investigation? Would it have been appropriate to fire them immediately?
Well, that's a good question, and that brings up, one of the points I made in my article. When you look at the master agreement between the Akron Public School Board and the Akron Education Association, which is the teachers union in Akron, they specifically say that his speech is protected. Matter of fact, to quote it, it says, "No member shall be disciplined with just cause or because of the exercise of the right of freedom of speech or any other constitutionally guaranteed right." So, and sort of, and to elaborate on that, not only can he say whatever he wants, racially intolerant or not, if he hasn't had any incidents in the school, any disciplinary incidents over the last couple of years, this incident will be treated in isolation. One of the things that was brought up is that, he has been cited for pinning a student against the wall. While they didn't mention the race of this student, I can assume that with the population of the students of Akron Public Schools, it's professionally that was a black student that he did. He spit at a student. He threw a chair at a student, all allegedly based on reports. But nonetheless, this gentleman has been a fireball in this school district, and there's been very little done about him. And with the way the union agreement works, is this situation will cause for suspension, but they can't fire him just on because of his last behavior. Which brought up, when I started doing the research on this, it brought up another interesting issue. There's a double standard in the policies that we have in our public schools across the United States, because there's clear-cut zero-tolerance policies for students to not cyberbully, but those policies are almost non-existent for teachers. I guess there's an assumption that if you're a teacher, you wouldn't have to be, under that kind of policy framework, but there are far and few between policies that actually state teachers are also accountable to the zero-tolerance policies for cyberbullying. And I think that's a larger issue that not only are we going to have to address in the Akron Public Schools, but we'll have to address this nationwide, because what I mentioned about October is that somehow it appeared that people from non-black communities found it carte blanche to be able to dress up in blackface, say the N-word, and be just outright offensive. Some of these people are college students, as we pointed out on Culture Love Family, but some of these people are professional folks who are dressing up in the most insensitive ways possible.
And what about the person who, this was a firestorm across the country as well, the family, Caucasian people that dressed up the little kid as a Ku Klux Klan member, and when questioned about it, said, well, they informed their child that there would probably be some, pushback from this. I'm like, you informed your child? They're 7, they don't know. And also stated to the media that this was a tradition in their family. Right. I guess, to me, my question is, now we have a classroom educator that's doing this, and you can weigh in, 419-826-1073. We have with us Richard Montgomery from Culture Love Family, talking about the issues and concerns that matter most. Something near and dear to his heart is education, and how Akron, because what happens in one part of Ohio can spread to the rest. The teacher made racist remarks about he didn't care who came to his neighborhood trick-or-treating, used the N-word, all kinds of really stank stuff, and didn't get fired. Because the thing is, kids come to your neighborhood, you still teach kids. So, does that make him immune? Does this guy live in a suburb, do you know?
Yeah, he lives in a suburb of Akron called Copley, which...
that's predominantly Caucasian.
Well, because you live in a Caucasian community, it does not mean you lose your responsibility to the profession of teaching and your obligation to the students and the community.
But personal bias, he couldn't set aside personal bias, I guess, is the thing to me, because I didn't realize where he lived. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, if he lived in the city of Akron, perhaps you would view it as racial insensitivity and stupidity, just ignorance. But you live in a suburb, so now it's an even deeper layer, because you're saying, in not so many words, you don't want diverse people in your neighborhood.
Well, it's a form of racial elitism. Not only is he saying in his statement that you're not welcome to come and trick or treat here if you can't behave yourself, what he's saying implicitly is that it's a privilege for you to come out here because there's not a lot of you out here. And
wow.
He's welcome to his point of view, but and the argument that I make in my article, and the next steps that I'm going to follow up with the board is that cyberbullying isn't something that is innocuous. Between, when I look at the statistics, between 3 and 9 kids commit suicide or suffer depression or go through post-traumatic stress as a result of something that occurred on the internet.
How many would you say? Say that again, please.
The statistic was between 3 and 9% of students who experience cyberbullying experience either depression, will move forward with suicide, or experiencing post-traumatic stress.
Okay, because we're moving towards more education on anti-bullying, and we had Dr. Lisa Pascarakovich on, who also works at UT. She really works in educational psychology, talking about some of the ill effects. And so we are going forward with a series, so to speak. So that's something good for us to know. So that there are implications and there are impacts. Now, here's the other piece. How can a school system conscionably keep somebody in the room because the educator of the classroom is considered an authority figure when you know that person is not for everybody that they may teach? Does that make it a lopsided teaching experience?
Well, under the union contract, they suspended him because it was tainted, public offense. However, under their contract, they just can't fire him. Now, they can fire him because of the public leverage, but he can come back and sue them, and I'm assuming that they're trying to avoid getting sued. The only real approach that they can take is to make sure that it doesn't happen again, and it's unlikely that he's going to continue to move forward in that school. What I envision them transferring him to a school with a lower number of African Americans, if you can actually find one in the city of Akron. Mm-hmm. But the problem still exists that there is no specific policy about cyberbullying that includes teachers. So, and negotiating that from the board will have to include buy-in from the teachers union. And in my opinion, the parents and families are going to dictate how this works out. Now they're going to have to move him to another school, but I'm calling for his being fired, and I don't care what measures they have to use this, and I don't care if they get sued, because the reality is the harm to the kids is much more of a loss than any money Akron Public Schools would have to pay out if he sued them.
Now, where can people find your article and the original? Does your article contain the original post?
Yes. Okay. I put in his original statement, and then I did the follow-up, because he did a follow-up to his statement with an apology on his Facebook page before he deleted his actual Facebook page. And like I said, he put it in, point 1, point 2, all the way to point 6. And point 5 is making any excuse for allowing one race to use a word and condemning another race for using the same word is institutionalized racism in and of itself, regardless of the justification used.
Right, and I saw that, and I was kind of flabbergasted that you're saying this as a person, period, that's supposed to be an educator. You sound very ignorant, because a N-word is an ignorant person. That's what we've forgotten. That's the base definition. All of this other racial stuff that's been applied to it has been the contemporary historical application, and that's what's been allowed. But in the real world, by definition only, the N-word means an ignorant person. So he could be one if he wanted to turn the pointing fingers back on him. So I thought that was just the most ridiculous justification ever. But that's just me looking at it like, did you really do that? I know, Richard, that people have biases. You're in the field of education. Do people bring their biases to the classroom?
We all do, which is why it's good to recruit people who are, not just technically sound in the skill of teaching, but who also have a open tolerance for people from all cultures. If you teach in a public school, no matter whether you're in Toledo or in New Mexico, you're working with a population of diverse learners. Public schools educate 95% of minority kids, which means that the majority of the people of color that you'll see in a school district are going to be in an urban school district. And if you don't want to teach them, or you teach them from a deficit point of view, then you belong somewhere else. And I would say you don't belong in teaching at all, because whether you're in a suburban or an urban district, those implicit ideas you bring to your job are transmitted whether you see them or not, and your tolerance for how you deal with certain kinds of students and your decisions that you make during the course of instruction. And all of those have an impact on the outcomes for students. And there's nothing more important than student learning. There's nothing more important than the learners who show up at that school. And, this gentleman is going to hear lots and lots and lots more about his mistakes, because I'm going to write about it so that you can't not hear David Spondike and not hear racist in the same sentence.
Mm-hmm. So that is something that's one for us to watch. And then before you go, let's tell people how they can look at your article and how they can see the original information, because the scary thing is, I'm sure it's happened in other school systems. This is the guy that just got caught because he posted on Facebook. He has the right because of freedom of speech, but it just sets a bad precedent, is what it does.
There's some freedoms you give up when you decide that you want to be a teacher, and you know that going in, and that's fine. But some people think that there's an alternative route. Mm-hmm. But you can find the article and the citations from that original post by Dr. Spondike on the Culture Love Family website. By January, I've given the board till January 1st to find a way to get rid of him, because either he has to go, or the board members who are, up to 2015 have to go. Dr. Walker, Tim Miller, Pat Bravo, all of them have to go if this gentleman stays in the district. And I'm willing to organize all the parents to make sure that we demonstrate that we're not going to tolerate that. If they don't adopt a zero tolerance policy, we'll give them one.
Wow. Okay, so that's a regional issue, a statewide issue. Now let's bring it back home. What's going on with SOB?
SOB. We just had SOB Saturday yesterday. We are, you mean the SOB chapter at UT, or SOB Saturdays? Both
SOB chapter at UT, because we're wanting an update so that people know that SOB is still standing strong. That's the Student African American Brotherhood, and you guys are still standing strong, still working with students, because TPS, is doing their own program. So now we have two opportunities for students. So how can people get in touch with SOB if they still want to participate yet this year?
All parents of middle school and high school students who would still like to have their child participate in SOB, please call my number at 419-530-5191. Again, that number is 419-530-5191. All students who are still interested in participating in SOB, one of the things, we just had a retreat on Friday, and one of the things that we discussed was how to manage the students who want to continue to work with SOB and are not interested in participating in any of the other newer organizations. Mm-hmm. So we're doing that outreach. My office is a central point for parents who are interested in connecting their child. We still have we literally have hundreds of kids from the TPS system who are still interested in participating, and we're trying to coordinate that through the UT chapter, and it's working really well.
And even if you're not from TPS, you can still participate. You just need to be a middle school or high school student, right?
Right. If you're in the metropolitan Toledo area, you have a young man who you think might be benefited by working with SOB, we'd love to have him.
Awesome.
We take all young men who have an interest in participating.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for bringing to us that information. That is one to watch. People can go to Culture Love Family to see the full article. We're going to take a brief commercial break here, about 2 minutes, so I will turn the mic down, Richard, and then when we come back, we will have Mrs. Montgomery talking about another issue in education.
Sounds awesome.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Schylar.
All right. You're listening to Juice Talk on the Juice FM 107.3. We'll go to